Thank you for joining us for Workday NOW Expense Management. Workday NOW Expense is one in a series of 30 on-demand videos that showcases how Workday is different by design and truly built for the future. Workday NOW videos are available for the entire product suite, including topics in financial management, human capital management, and technology. My name is Jeff Pike, and I'm a solution consultant in our pre-sales organization. As a frequent traveler myself, I look forward to sharing with you our expense solution. For the next 30 minutes, I will be your host to take you through a tour of Workday's expense management. Let's get started. In today's corporate environment, it's certainly not trivial to know that T&E accounts for a sizable chunk of a company's annual expenditure. To understand just how significant it actually is, a MasterCard study from a couple of years back noted that corporate travel and entertainment is the second largest controllable expense after salaries and benefits, which represents a key opportunity to address some of the common challenges and hidden costs derived from the expense management process. To add even more context to this, the Global Business Travel Association has forecasted global business travel spend to reach $1.6 trillion by 2020. It's not only important to think about these figures from a dollar perspective, but also in the volume of transactions and expense reports that it represents. Hence the growing concern around expense management for companies that continue to rely on manual processes to capture and approve employee expenses. The reality is that most expense reporting processes today are overwhelming employees. A recent study by Wakefield Research, who polled over 1,000 US travelers, found that expense reporting can negatively affect employee morale and productivity. Among the findings are that 84% would think more highly of their employer if the expense reporting process was better, and 75% would be more efficient if the expense reporting system were easier to use. What's even more interesting is that 71% said that they would look for a new job in the face of consistently late reimbursements. And finally, 53% have undergone a personal financial loss to avoid completing an expense report. The key takeaways here are that expense management touches almost every employee in the company, and employee dissatisfaction can lead to higher attrition rates. This is an area that clearly needs close attention. The difficulty that employees experience with expense reporting is directly tied to the back office systems that support these processes. The typical transaction volume within this process has forced many organizations to automate these functions. However, automation alone does not equate to organizations providing the right solutions that enable long-term success and satisfaction. Legacy systems or decoupled approaches to expense management create significant challenges that complicate the ability to adapt to change and fully support the business. This includes multiple integrations, complex controls, minimal visibility, lengthy reimbursements, and lack of mobile accessibility. There's a better way with Workday Expenses. Workday Expenses is a complete solution that streamlines your expense reporting process. It provides end users with an intuitive way to capture and submit expenses on desktop and mobile devices, and managers with insight into organizational spend to monitor and optimize expense policies. Workday Expenses is built on a modern technology foundation and is part of the same system as Workday Financial Management and Workday Human Capital Management, providing a seamless experience for all employees' self-service tasks. I'll start off today by walking you through how a typical user would use Workday to capture and submit expenses, and then show you how managers can approve the expenses on the go, as well as access meaningful analytics to take stock of their team's spend. Let's discover how Workday Expenses can fundamentally change the way that your employees view the expense reporting process. As you can see, I'm logged in here as Jennifer Carter. As I scroll down, you can see that Jennifer has access to do things like enter her expenses, time tracking, time off, pay slips. So one thing important to note is that if you look in the App Store, it's one app that you're downloading with Workday. Let's go ahead and focus on the expenses. So if existing receipts appear, you have the ability to open them up and make changes, or of course you can add them on the fly. The intuitive user interface requires no training and encourages user adoption. Let's go ahead and enter a new expense report on the fly. So I'm going to enter in trip to Corp. And note that the company defaults, the date defaults to today, but of course I could change that date should I so desire. I can enter things like cost center, region, division location. All of those are, however, defaulted from the employee record. So the employee doesn't have to enter this information in. It's going to be defaulted, and should there be any changes or modifications, they can do so either at the expense header level or at the line item level. We're going to go ahead and add a new expense because she has a receipt that she wants to scan and enter for car rental gas. So we're going to go ahead and take the photo. Let's take a nice snapshot. And now we have that image that's now attached to that record. Again, the date defaults to today. As I select my expense item, these are all configured by you. I'm going to select car rental and fuel. And as you remember, the amount is $60. And again, if I had something relative to a project, or perhaps it was billable, I could enter that as well. So the work tags default in for all the expense report line items based on the employee and the company. And of course, you can always modify them, but the employee doesn't need to focus on time-consuming manual entry or correction on the back end. Let's go ahead and complete this. As you can see, I'm now logged into the desktop as Jennifer Carter. We're going to focus our attention on the worklet for expenses here. And notice that there's numerous self-service options. So she could have quick visibility into her most recent expense reports, either by viewing here or down in her recent section. She can create an expense or a spend request. So there's a number of ways that you can create expense reports. From scratch, you could copy previous reports. We can even leverage delivered credit card integration from MasterCard, American Express, and Visa. We're going to go ahead and edit the existing expense report. So I'm going to perform a related action, and we'll go ahead and pull up that expense report. So here's the $60 that we went ahead and entered through the mobile device. And up top, it's always going to tally up any personal charges that would not be reimbursable to the employee. And we'll see where we can select that. Company paid transactions. So in a moment here, I'm going to select credit card transactions that have been integrated into Workday. Any cash advances, if applicable, and obviously tallying up the total amount reimbursable to the employee. So I'm going to import the existing record, and I'm going to select credit card transactions. So we happen to have a hotel bill from Marriott, we have a Hertz rental car charge, and we have a United Airlines airfare. So I've added all three of these transactions for my credit card. I even have the capability to integrate directly from a travel booker. So it's going to suggest the matches that are applicable, and here pulling in the record from that travel booker. So that way you have all the integration applicable and available to you that you need to complete and compile an expense report. I'm going to select the receipt for my United Airlines, so I can either drag and drop that, or as I just did, I can select that from a file. And I'm going to focus on my car rental. I'll go ahead and select my Hertz car rental receipt, and that's going to populate. And the next area is I'm going to focus on the hotel accommodations. Now notice that we have different information and item details available to us based on the expense item type. So it's already populating from the credit card transaction, the hotel, the arrival and departure date, and the destination. So here I'm going to go ahead and type in the dollar amount for the daily rate, and I'll put in $230 and go ahead and itemize that. And it's automatically populated the $230 or daily rate per night, and now it's letting me know that I have 2 nights of room tax to populate. On the top right quarter, here's the amount that I have remaining to itemize. So I know that my amount happens to be $55, and I still have $2.20 to itemize. So maybe I picked up a bottle of water from the room, and that's not reimbursable. So I could simply put this in as miscellaneous, $220, and personal. And once I select done, it's going to confirm and validate that I've gone ahead and allocated all of those transactions accordingly. So as you saw, the expense item drives the expense item detail fields that are displayed. The work tags continue to default automatically. So I'm going to add in a new expense item here for entertainment, but I took a client to lunch. So I can also type in the expense item field lunch, and it automatically converted it into meals. So this is a concept that we call utilizing synonyms. So lunch really equals meals in our expense reports. So very easy to configure for you as a customer. But here we know that it's actually entertainment. So it's a client lunch, and you see that the item details have now changed. Our total dollar amount I'll put in as $120. And I'll just put in business lunch, and our topic is client meeting. And notice that it's providing an alert. So we have a reminder letting us know that the amount for the item entertainment on the date is less than or equal to $50 per person. So perhaps your requirements are that you need to itemize any meals greater than $50 per person. So here we can go ahead and select a customer. We can add a guest on the fly. We're going to go ahead and select Brandon Harris, who happens to be a colleague of Jennifer, and add him into this expense report. I'm going to go ahead and submit. Now we received an error message. So as I look at my error message, note that it's identifying that I'm missing some attachments. So there are conditions that I can put into place as far as hard stop errors, which is the entertainment expense over the maximum per person, versus alerts. Now these alerts and errors will always be auditable, meaning they're always tagged along the ride with the transaction, with the expense reports. So if I need to resolve this, I go back to my entertainment line, and maybe I want to create a guest on the fly. I can add them in. And notice that we also have additional work tags, and one of the requests that especially sales travelers have is to add in work tags for things like a customer visit. So we then can report upon it. So here we'll go ahead and select our customer for Warren Systems, and now we have additional work tags that are populated. So we have the customer, we have channel, which is a related work tag, which is now defaulted in as well. So now that I go ahead and submit my expense report, it's going to let me know the next step in that process. So now the employee knows that the next step is to then go to the manager for approval. We can always select our process to see that our business process transactions are letting me know when that next step needs to occur. So here, a due date was automatically assigned as far as April 3rd for Angela to go ahead and complete that processing. So another example of approval routing could be including a project manager if a project work tag has been applied, or specific expense items. Perhaps it's entertainment. So the key here is the employee and the employer has better transparency into the approval process, so there's no more wondering who's responsible and what remaining steps need to be completed. So the employee no longer needs to call or email or waste people's time contacting someone or waiting for responses to find out where their expense report sits in the process. The last component I wanted to show you for Angela is we'll go back to our self-service, and you can see here that we have the reimbursable allowance plan activity. So typically this is something that is set up with HR. But now, since it's one unified platform with HR and finance all in the same areas, it's a simple, intuitive user interface that makes it fast and easy to enter expenses. The users have full visibility and control of their expenses, and you're enforcing your spend policies between the business processes and validation rules. As you can see, I'm now logged in as Angela Bianchi. Angela is Jennifer Carter's manager. As I scroll down on her mobile device, I'm going to go into the inbox here. All the transactions flow utilizing the business process framework within Workday. Notifications can be delivered to multiple places. Your email, the inbox here as we see, and mobile devices at no additional costs. In fact, deploying this takes nothing more than checking a few boxes. We see an absence request, a requisition, but we're going to focus our attention on the expense report that Jennifer recently submitted. The exclamation point is simply letting us know that there's an alert associated with this expense report. This is all based on our configurable conditions and controls implemented. So as I scroll down, I can see things like the personal amount. I can see the individual line items on the expense report. And most importantly, I have the capability to view analytics. So as I pull up the analytics, I can see things like talent information. Because we're one single unified platform, on the expense analysis, we can see HCM type of information. We can drill down on the expenses for the last 12 months. Perhaps we want to investigate further the lodging. We can look at the hotels. So we can see that 18% or $1,200 approximately were spent on the Four Seasons. So we can see things like what expenses has this person submitted in the past? Are they using approved vendors? Are they staying within expense guidelines? The user may also annotate analytics and send out via email. Ultimately, this empowers decision makers to make more informed, data-driven decisions at the point of the decision as opposed to after the fact or not at all. As you can see, Angela now has the capabilities to deny, send back, add an approver, delegate this to someone else, or reassign. In our case, we're going to go ahead and approve the expense report. I'm now logged into the desktop as Angela Bianchi, the same place where a manager views individual performance, PTO requests, performance evaluations, is now where they can view spend information. All expense, spend, and transactions are available for reporting in real time. Business users can slice and dice information across a variety of business dimensions. In this case, I'm going to view Field Sales North America by worker. I'm then going to drill down further on Jennifer Carter by business document. So as we see here, now we have a view into the expense report that we submitted and recently approved. So managers aren't dependent upon complex reporting tools, IT, or error-prone Excel spreadsheets for insight into their workers' expense activities. This will provide them with greater transparency and accountability. There's no more excuses that employees or managers don't have visibility. I'm now viewing my expense reports that are out of policy for the last 12 months. Now note, here's our expense that we recently submitted for Jennifer Carter, with the alerts that is carried through from an audit trail perspective. So notice that we're missing some attachments. I have the capability, via related action, to provide talent feedback directly from this expense dashboard. So because you have one unified platform with HR, expenses, the transactions, and analytics all in one place, highly configurable business rules and data validation will ensure compliance and greater visibility. As you can see here, I pulled up an expense management dashboard. Now keep in mind the information displayed is based on user security, and reports can be configured or tailored by the user to meet their individual reporting needs. Keep in mind this is also available on mobile devices. So in our case, let's go ahead and take a look at our expense management top expense items. I'm going to drill down by my supervisory org, and you noted that we have a number of business dimensions that we could drill down upon. So in this case, I'm going to focus on Field Sales North America and drill down by customer. If you recall, we entered the customer as an additional work tag on that sample expense report. So if I want to take a better look and understand who's assigned in the sales organization no customer to their activities, I can now interrogate this further. Because for sales reps, they should be spending the majority of their time focused on customer-related activities. So if I wanted to drill into this further for Jennifer, I'm going to drill down into her and look at all of her expense items to gain a greater understanding as far as all of the expenses that have been associated to non-customer related activity. I can even drill down and interrogate further by hotel as an example. So maybe I want to look at opportunities for preferred vendors or preferred spending. I can even look at the customer from a related action should I have the appropriate security rights. So in this case, you can see a financial snapshot of that customer for Tyrell Investments. And if I have the appropriate security privileges, I can even take action directly upon that customer. So in summary, we have a unified and modern business architecture designed for functional users where we encourage curious clicking and drilling down. There's no additional technologies required to provide that deep and meaningful analysis. The controls and business processes that we put into place throughout Workday Expenses, I think is important to cover in a brief moment. So first and foremost, we have the business process definition. And as you can see here, we have it written out by all of the different various steps, but we can also view a diagram. So for those of you who are familiar with the tool Visio, it looks very similar. And in fact, any modifications you make to this diagram are automatically updated within Workday. So now all of your audits are now easily identifiable for any modifications to these business processes that have occurred from one point of time to current. The next area I wanted to show you was the custom validations. And if you recall, the custom validations determine whether you have a hard stop or simply an alert. So for example, we had a hard stop for that entertainment expense over the certain maximum, but we also had some alerts based on missing attachments. So you determine from a configuration standpoint whether you want it to be a hard stop on this expense report or whether you want an alert, which will always have that audit trail attached to it indefinitely. The final dashboard I wanted to show you in the demonstration today is the dashboard for the expense audit work area. So imagine looking at things like attendees that aren't listed or missing receipts or out-of-pocket expenses here and being able to drill down here or any of these blue highlighted areas. So we can ensure compliance with your policies. Are people completing all the required information? Are they using corporate cards? Are receipts attached as required? So a single tool to provide executives visibility into spend across the organization, as well as compliance and audit visibility and spend policy adherence. Let's review what we just went through. So Workday's application, whether mobile or desktop, enables end users to capture and submit expenses in minute. They can take a photo of an expense receipt wherever they are, enter an expense item, report, and submit their expense report for approval. Managers can approve the expense reports on the go. With Workday, you can easily configure approvals to meet the needs of individual departments. And lastly, you saw the robust reporting. So you can use the expense management dashboard after approving the expense reports to see expenses by different dimensions, such as cost center, worker, region, and much more. This intuitive experience empowers your employees and removes productivity barriers to improve their overall job satisfaction. This is just a list of some of our customers utilizing Workday Expenses. But don't just listen to us. Look at a customer such as City Year that received 88% reduction in expense reimbursement time. Or Shelter Insurance, 75% reduction in expense report processing time. And lastly, CHC, 75% faster expense report submission. Thank you for your time today, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.